So once again, welcome everyone to the ClearAdmit MBA Essay Insight webinar series. It's a pleasure to have you all joining us. My name is Graham. I'm the co-founder of ClearAdmit, and I'm going to moderate today's session. I'd like to just quickly introduce and welcome our panelists. So we'll just go through them real quick here, starting off with Trisha Bayoni, who is the Assistant Dean of Admissions at Columbia Business School. Welcome, Trisha. Thanks for making time today.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. I remember being in your shoes when I was applying for my MBA journey back in the day. So exciting to have you joining us today.
Excellent. That's right. You are a graduate of Columbia Business School, which I'm sure we might hear a little bit more about as we go through today. Next up, I wanted to introduce Paula Amorim. She is the MBA Admissions Director and also a graduate of IESE, where she works. So welcome, Paula.
Thank you, Graham. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone.
All right. We know you've told us it's very sunny and warm today in Barcelona. Let's also introduce Andrea McHale, who's the Director of Full-Time and Global MBA Admissions at Michigan Ross. Hey, Andrea.
Hi, Graham. Thank you for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining. Super excited to be with you today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that we've got people from every time zone. So some people are starting their day with us and some are up in the middle of the night, it would seem. All right. So last but not least, we have Laurel Grodman joining us from the Yale School of Management, where she is Assistant Dean for Admissions. Hey, Laurel.
Hey, Graham. Thanks so much for having me back. As you know, this is one of my favorite events, so always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So let's dive right in. We have a couple of roundtable questions that I wanted to get each of our panelists to weigh in on. And so we'll go alphabetically and we'll start with Trisha at Columbia. Trisha, could you just tell me like one thing that you're hoping to learn from a candidate's essays that you don't get somewhere else in the file? And then also just briefly, does Columbia have a policy around applicants using ChatGPT or other generative AI tools?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second question first, Graham. Absolutely, you are invited to use AI for idea generation in your application, but we do expect and ask you to sign that the work that's submitted is your original work. So idea generation, fantastic. But work production, that should be your own. This is consistent with the AI policy in the classroom as well. Each of our core classes and our electives do have a stated AI policy, and it does incorporate AI in some capacity within the curriculum. And so admissions follows suit with that. So what are we hoping to learn from a candidate essays that we can't get elsewhere in the file? We want to know your why. Why MBA? Why Columbia Business School? Why the industry? Why the function that you're intending to target post-graduation? And why now? The most important thing that you can answer for us through your essays is your why.
Okay, well, that's a great way to think of it. Very helpful. All right, let's ask Paula the same question. So yeah, what are you hoping at IESE to kind of learn about from the candidates' essays? And then also, is there any kind of a policy with AI?
So we don't have a specific policy. We have some directions and instructions about using AI during the essays. To be honest, I think that also the ChatGPT has also risen the bar on the whole quality, especially grammar-wise. So I have been particularly upset when I see grammar mistakes and, because I think that candidates should be using it to at least review their essays, right? So I would actually encourage students and candidates to use it to make sure that it's in their best English and language. However, what we are trying to gauge with the essays is people's essence. So that's why using AI to its fullest might not be the best choice, because we really want to know who you are. We want to, at the essay, we're really trying to understand who you are as a person, not only as a candidate and as a GMAT or GRE or as a CV. We're really trying to get a little bit more personal. So it is very important to be authentic, to be genuine, to bring your own voice to the essays. So this is really what we're trying to get, that we don't get anywhere else in the CV or filling out the forms. Only the essays can give us that.
Yeah, and I think you're raising a really great point, which is that, I mean, it does sound like these tools, they may lack in terms of what they could produce. There may be some missing sort of character, or like you said, the essence of the candidate or the authenticity. So very good point. I want to turn to Andrea at Michigan. Ross, what's your take? What are you looking for in the essays that you don't get somewhere else? And also, is there a policy around AI?
Yeah, similarly to Paula, she talked about the essence. And I kind of wrote down really quickly, like ambitions, motivations, passions, and values. Those are the 4 things that we find hard to glean from any other criteria that we ask for in the application. We find that in the essays. So it's really important, again, just like Paula said, to bring your authentic voice. While we don't have a formal policy around AI or generative AI usage, we do ask that you cite any tool usage within your essays, but bringing that authentic voice and using generative AI or any type of feature for grammatical corrections, outline, just cite that and use it as a tool rather than it being your voice. We really do want authenticity within your essay.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. I guess one thing I want to just remind, I saw someone asked a question in the chat, and I had forgotten at the outset to mention that we don't take questions during the main part of the session today, but each of our panelists is going to break off into a little Zoom breakout to take your questions individually when we wrap the main session. So stay tuned. They will stick around and you'll be able to ask individual questions as we go with them in their rooms in the breakout. So let's turn to Laurel, though, and find out how things are done at Yale. Yeah, Laurel, what are you looking for in the essays, and what's the policy on AI?
So at Yale SOM, we believe that the best predictors we have of your future behaviors are your past behaviors. So the essay is really one more opportunity for you to share some of that information with us that maybe we haven't been able to glean thus far through your resume, through your letters of recommendation, other sort of glimpses we get into the behaviors and actions you've already undertaken. So we use our essay to give you another opportunity to expand on that and give us a little bit deeper view into some of your past behaviors. So that's really what's behind our essay prompts. And as far as AI goes, I don't have too much to add beyond what my colleagues have already shared. I think we're all sort of circling around this idea that AI is out there. It can be a beneficial tool in helping generate ideas or brainstorming, topics or ways to approach an essay, but the content of the essay needs to be yours for all of the reasons that were already shared. So we for the first time this year at SOM did produce an AI sort of guidance statement that I definitely recommend reviewing before you head into your application.
Okay, excellent. I think, Laurel, you and I had a conversation not too long ago in which you were saying, yeah, at the beginning, brainstorming, et cetera, and maybe at the end, the way you would have a friend read something and give you feedback or check grammatically for errors. But yeah, it's that middle part that's so important that it sounds like I'm hearing consistently from all of you that really needs to be the work of the candidate, which makes a lot of sense. I know that all of us have probably played a little bit with AI, and it can help, but sometimes the text isn't exactly inspiring. So keep that in mind. Let's move on.
Graham, before you move on, you just brought up a point, the way you would have a friend or a parent or a sibling read something before submitting it. Still do that, even if you have AI do it, because that's the person who's going to know if it sounds like you.
Yeah, that's really great. Great advice. I think, I can't remember who it was, but somebody on one of these panels very recently mentioned that the idea of, having a friend or a family member read your file is important. The other thing that someone said was have them read your essay without the question and tell you what the question is. And we'll probably get into that as we talk about each of your essay questions in this next segment. But, sometimes people fail to answer the question, or it's not obvious what question they're answering. So that can be a good exercise too. Let's move into each of your applications. And again, we'll start with Trisha at Columbia. And we have a couple of slides here, Trisha, with your different essay questions. So what I wanted you to do was pick one of your essay topics and walk us through it. Let us know why your team's asking it and what you were looking for, and any kind of advice you would have to someone who's setting out to write that essay. And then I may have a follow-up question or two, but just tell us if you want us to move to the next slide or where you want us to be here.
Jump to essay number 3, as
Okay.
that one is somewhat tweaked for this year. And so I think that would be a good one for us to talk about. And I know you can all read, but I'll just read 4 as well. We believe Columbia Business School is a special place with a collaborative learning environment in which students feel a sense of belonging, agency, and partnership, academically, culturally, and professionally. How would you co-create your optimal MBA experience at CBS? And we want you to be specific. So what does that mean? This has been questions we've been asked this year. So as you think about your MBA experience, it's going to be on the 3 dimensions of academic, careers, and community. And at any given time during your experience, one or more of those 3 areas is what's going to take prominence. And each of you are going to have a different experience in your MBA journey. Each of you are going to have different priorities of what you're hoping to get out of an MBA, and what you want that experience to be. And so first, we want to understand what are your unique goals and your unique priorities while you're at Columbia Business School. And then how are you going to co-create that experience? And the co-create is because there are some structure that is in place for you. We have a core set of classes. The entire first semester is your core. And then there's one core class in your second semester, but everything else is electives. And there's over 300 electives to choose from. So you're really co-creating what that academic experience is by the electives that you are selecting. This year, we've also rolled out curriculum pathways, 17 different academic pathways that help to inform the elective selection you may want to take as it relates to your targeted industry or your targeted function for a summer internship or post MBA or even over the long term. So 1, how are you thinking about that academic experience and what do you want that academic experience to be? Second, as we think about the community, which is culturally here in that question, how do you want to be involved in our community? Previously, essays from Columbia and peer schools would say, how are you going to fit? And we actually don't think the concept of fit is the right concept, because that implies that you need to change who you are to be our culture. We want to understand who is the authentic you, to the original point a colleague made about ChatGPT. Who is the authentic you and how are you going to show up in our community? Who are you going to bring? How are you going to enhance it? We are very proud of the diversity within our community. We are very proud of our inclusivity of that diversity. And so who are you going to be in our community? And that is the clubs that you are not only going to join, but how might you become involved in them? Involvement doesn't mean forming a new club, or it doesn't mean being the president of this club. It could mean participating in a career track or participating in a global immersion program. Their participation can be however you define it. So how are you going to define it? And so what is your cultural, your community experience going to be? What excites you? It doesn't have to be on the professional. It could be on the social. When I was a first-year student at Columbia Business School, I got really involved in the Wine Society and developed a lifelong passion for learning about wine. And so there could be something that you have no experience with, but you're really excited to gain the experience with, and it's on more of the social dimension versus the professional or the affinity. That's okay. That's a way that you would be showing up in our community, and we want to know about it. And then professionally, as you think about the career you're coming from and the career you want to go to, it could be in the same industry or function. You could be making a full career pivot. And so how is the career resources of the school, not just the career management center, but the entire school, whether it's through centers and programs or through even classes and professors, or through our executive in residence program, or the resources of the career center? How are those resources, how are you going to leverage them? There are more resources than you probably will ever be able to use. So what are the couple that you want to take advantage of to get you to where you want to go in your career? And, a question that's also been asked about this is, should candidates provide a laundry list of everything, or should they focus on one or two things? How are you going to have an MBA experience? What is most important to you? And tell us about that. A laundry list is useful if you are going to actively be engaged in that laundry list. But what's more useful is, what are you going to be actively involved with? On average, our students will join 5 to 7 clubs, and they'll hold leadership positions in 2 to 3 clubs. But sometimes it's not a club, it's their cluster. They're holding a student government position in, or they're holding leadership on the ethics board, or in a Hermes, which are the student ambassadors for admissions that you all may have had opportunities to connect with through our website. So what is it that you want to be involved in? This question and the rephrasing of this question was in part to get a little smarter than AI and ChatGPT. It is very easy for AI to go onto our website, and if you said, I'm interested in real estate, ChatGPT can tell you all about the Milstein Center, and it's going to give you a lot of information. But what it's not going to do is tell you how you're going to use the Milstein Center, how you're going to be involved, what about it excites you, how does it apply to your why. That's what we want to understand. We want to understand the authentic you in our community, and that's what this question is getting at.
Okay,
Should the clubs, I'm sorry, I wanted to address one question I did see in the chat because it's related. And should the clubs mirror the career ambition? Yes, and there should be a through line of what you're telling us you want to do on your post MBA goals, both your summer internship if you're applying for August entry and your post MBA goals. So there should be some sort of a through line from where you're going, from where you were to where you're going, as it relates to professional clubs or affinity clubs or social clubs. And I would gather that the Wine Society had absolutely nothing to do with my goals to get into marketing, broadly defined in a consumer industry. It was something that I got excited about. And so tell us both. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Graham, go ahead.
No. I'm glad that you addressed that, because I saw that comment come up in the chat as well. And I think I really appreciate you shedding light on this essay, because just this notion of co-creating is really important. I feel like, in my own experience in business school, it is so amazing how, like you said, there's a structure in place, but the MBA experience is so much mirrored by the students that are there at that particular moment in time. So it really is student driven at all these top programs that we talk about here. So appreciate you, shedding light on that. And also this idea that you could talk about both a wine club and a professional club. And again, probably not a laundry list if you're, going to be able to be specific in 250 words. So very good advice. I did want to ask you one follow-up, and it's actually, if we could go back a slide. You guys have this question, it's essay 1, where you ask for, kind of a short-term goal like most schools do. But then you say, what is your long-term dream job? And that word dream is not a word that we see in other schools' essays. And so it just jumped out at me, and I wondered, like, how much leeway do we have as an applicant in answering this? So for instance, like, someone's dream job might be to be in the C-suite of Microsoft or some major tech company, right? But their long-term goal may be more, well, I'm going to work my way up, and within 10 years, I'll be a senior vice president of something or other or whatever. So like, how dreamy can they be about this long-term plan? Or is the committee going to say, oh yeah, right, this is too far-flung, or is it okay to kind of really dream a bit with this?
Yeah, I think, if someone wants to be in the C-suite of Microsoft, tell us that. We do want to know that dream, and we want to know, how are you going to get there? Something that I talk about a lot is, let's say that you want to be head of strategy for Netflix. You want to be the person who determines the content that Netflix has on its platform. Content acquisition is one path to get there. Going through management consulting in a strategy role and working your way up in a management consulting firm, and then pivoting to the client side, whether in a streaming platform or direct to Netflix or even at Microsoft. is another way. There are lots of ways to become head of streaming for Netflix. And so talk about that, because that's the middle portion of your goal. So where do you see yourself immediately post-graduation in the next 3 to 5 years? That's really what the recruiting plan is going to be while you're at Columbia Business School or whatever MBA program you're applying to. But then what's the end goal? What do you really want to do? And if it's, I want to be in the C-suite at Microsoft, well, then tell us the things that you're interested in that are going to get there. We do want to know that dream job. And does that dream job align with the short-term goals as well? And for those of you who are on the call who have not had an opportunity to look up my background, if I sound like a career advisor, prior to being in admissions, I spent 12 and a half years in the Career Management Center at Columbia Business School as a career advisor. And this is what your career advisors at any of the top business programs are going to be asking you. Not just what do you want for your summer internship, not just what do you want to do post MBA, but where do you want to go? And they're going to help you craft how to get there. And that's also useful for you to think about as you're crafting your essay for Columbia Business School. Why do you want that MBA? What's that dream job? You want to be in the C-suite at Microsoft? Okay, well, tell us how you'd like to get there.
Okay, super helpful. Now let's turn our attention to Paula at IESE. And Paula, we have your essays here on a slide, but I understand you might actually talk about something else here that's part of your process that relates. And so I'll ask you some questions about the essays, but let's first start with where you wanted to start.
Yes. Well, I thought it would be interesting for people connecting today to maybe hear about something that they don't hear or they don't see that much online, because it's not that obvious or transparent, because we want to make it and leave it a bit mysterious. But so basically, in terms of written essay, mandatory, we only have one mandatory essay, which is the career essay, and then you have the optional essay. And I know that Graham is going to ask me a little bit more about that. But since last year, we've included video essays. And I know that many people get a bit nervous with that. I would definitely be nervous if I was applying. But this is also to say that the questions that we ask in the video are questions that you would probably get in an interview. So they are nothing super complex that you would need time to think and reflect and come up with a very complex and deep answer. So the one that I would like to address, it's the first, well, actually we have one first question, that it's how you pronounce your name, because we feel that it's thoughtful for us, especially the interviewers, to know how we pronounce your name, because we have people coming from all over the world. And I think that at some point we got a bit tired and embarrassed of butchering people's names. So I make sure to practice the person's name many times before the interview. So this is the first question. It's an easy one. So I think everybody's going to do a good job in this. And then the second one is introduce yourself to the MBA admissions team and use this opportunity to highlight your unique attributes and qualities, right? And one, just a small observation, you will see my face asking the question, so you will probably get very tired of my face because I ask all the questions. So I recorded all the videos, probably with this background, so this will look familiar. So here, it's not necessarily a walk me through your CV, because I have your CV, but it's a chance for you to go a little bit beyond and introduce your real self, right? So you can talk about maybe your life journey, maybe family or friends, or something that changed your life and changed the direction that you were going, what you like to do as a hobby. It's obviously nice to mention what you do as work. But I think that it's the opportunity to introduce yourself a bit more holistically, and sort of paint the picture of who you are to the person that will be assessing you. and also interviewing you, right? This doesn't mean that the person in the interview will not ask you to introduce yourself. Maybe you will have to repeat some things, but I think that this is a more comprehensive opportunity that you have to mention things that maybe you didn't have chance to mention in other parts of your application as a main introduction.
So a couple of like tactical questions about this. Number one, do they get to do this more than once, or is it like they press the record and they just have like how long do they have to talk about themselves? And then is it a just once and done, or do they get to re-record, or how does that work?
They don't get to re-record, but they get to prepare. So there is prep time.
Okay.
It's a minute, which is a lot. It doesn't look like a lot, but a minute for you to. So make sure you have, we have instructions. It's very detailed, but make sure you have, you can do it like online, but I don't know. I'm still the person that likes
Pen and
to
paper.
organize my thoughts with pen and paper. So you put the bullet points, right? How you want to structure, so you follow, and then eventually you're going to have a minute and a half to answer the question, right? Which is also a lot. It's not as little as it looks, but it is one shot.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And that's not uncommon, by the way. We see a lot of schools doing that. And I think it's meant to sort of mimic something that's real life. You don't get to re-record your answers in an actual interview. So,
Exactly.
so I appreciate you shedding light on this, just because, as you said, like it's maybe less talked about in terms of these videos. I did want to ask you a question about the optional essay, though. Your main essay is about goals, and a lot of candidates will, be writing that sort of essay. But this optional essay seems like a really nice kind of open-ended thing. And unlike some optional essays where it's like, tell us if you were unemployed for a time period, or if you couldn't get a recommendation from a current employer, or, explain a low grade or something. This seems a bit more general. And I'm wondering to what extent candidates use this because it's a chance to sort of share something else, or is it your opinion that now that you have these videos that they don't necessarily have to do this?
Well, no, to be honest, it's still very much used to my joy, to be very selfish, because I love this essay. And I joke with my team that I would encourage everyone to do it. But then again, I'm selfish because I don't get to read all the applications that my team gets to read. So they're like, Paula, don't encourage people to write it if they don't really need it. But here I am. I was saying I love this essay. So yeah, it is intentionally an open-ended essay. And I think that here, again, it is a chance for you to maybe highlight something in your profile or your personality or your life story that you didn't have the chance to write anywhere else, right? Maybe you're very engaged in community service and volunteering, and even though you have like a small space to cite that in the CV, you might not feel that it's enough just to leave it in the CV, and you want to write an essay about that. Or you might talk about the 7 countries that you've lived because your mother was a diplomat or a big executive in a company, and you were just moving every 3 years, and how that shaped your personality, right? I think that each person has a very unique story, and if they feel that could add to their storytelling and their the painting the picture as a whole for the committee, then use it. Don't feel pressured though. So just to reinforce this, if you really don't have anything that you would like to highlight, if you feel, because in the application you will see that we only have 1 mandatory essays, but we have small text boxes. So for example, if you have any career gaps, please justify them. So there is a text box for that. So this is new. This is new for this upcoming cycle. What was the motivation for moving this job when you're filling out the form, right? So this is really nice because it's sort of like we're asking in the moment that we're sort of going over the application, so it helps us, you know, like locate and situate the person.
Sure.
But if the form is over and you still feel that there's something that you would like to add that you didn't have the chance, the optional essay is a good chance for that.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thanks for shedding light on that too. Let's turn to Andrea at Michigan Ross, and we're going to do the same thing, Andrea. So we've got some slides here with your essay topics, and just direct us if you want to another page, because I think we have a couple slides here. So wherever you want us to go.
Wonderful. So we can just stay right here because I'm going to discuss essay number 2. And I think first and foremost, after 4 cycles of just minor tweaks to our essays, we've completely revamped all of our essays this year. Jada Kavanaugh, who spearheaded this initiative, will be joining me in the breakout room. She also has the longest tenure in our admissions team. So she is an essay reader extraordinaire. So if you have questions, Jada will be able to answer. But I think essay 2 kind of keeps to the core of like our Ross values of providing choice in your voice and having some prompts. So in essay 2, we've kept them also short, but have expanded it. Last year, we had 2 prompts at 100 words each. This one, you get to choose 1 prompt for a maximum of 200 words. And the prompt choices are: what makes you unique? Can you provide a specific example of how you've overcome a personal challenge? Sorry, someone just chatted that blocked this slide. What makes you excited to get up in the morning? And the last one being: describe a time when you made a difference in your community or with an individual. So again, we do not have preference in terms of the prompt that you choose, but most importantly, we advise applicants to choose one that allows the prompt to highlight your motivations and the impact that you've had. So again, getting to the initial question Graham posed to us in terms of what we are looking for, this question really gets to your core values and your motivations as an applicant. And that's really important because it is not an area and anywhere that we ask within the application criteria that we get to know you as an applicant other than these essay prompts.
So I want to, I kind of 2 little follow-ups. So the first relates to this question that you're talking about. It feels to me like when I look at these questions, like what makes you unique and what makes you excited to get up each morning, feel like these sort of big picture, more sort of almost philosophical, general things. Whereas, you know, the other 2, provide a specific example of how you've overcome a challenge or describe a time when you made a difference. Those feel like anecdotes, like here's a specific thing that happened. And so I wondered, is that like intentional, or is it just sort of the way that these came together? Because if I were a candidate, I would be looking at these and thinking, oh, I should maybe do one of each of those 2 buckets. But it sounds like, you know, it's really up to the candidate. They could do whatever they want. But was that intentional?
Slightly intentional. We really wanted to, again, give as much choice as possible. And each individual, yes, there's only 4 prompts, but some applicants we see looking at things very tangible. And then some look at it more big picture, philosophical, like why an MBA, why now? You know, how do they view their personal accomplishments and, you know, like life values? Allowing enough different prompts to provide that range of perspective, and also keeping that unique approach to how anyone can tackle that prompt in terms of providing what they want to showcase within their application.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm seeing, sorry, they pick one, right? So it's,
One.
so they just go whatever direction they want.
Yeah.
I mean, I do love the fact that you're giving them, and actually, we're going to talk to Laurel in a second at Yale, and they have a multi, you know, kind of choose your own adventure kind of thing too, where you get to pick from. Yale has 3 questions, I think. So it is interesting. And I think candidates really like this because it gives them, I would also imagine on your side as an admissions team reading, maybe it's a bit more interesting because you're not always reading the same exact questions. One last thing, if we can go to the next slide, you've got this question about goals the way many schools do. But the thing that jumped out at me is you just asked for short term, which I presume is like, what are you going to do after you graduate from Ross? And I just wondered, like, briefly, like what led you guys to do that and not ask about, the sort of long-term plan?
Yeah, really, this is about focus. So getting to the core of an applicant doing their research to understand why an MBA, why now, and why Ross. And so we understand that we want people to be able to communicate what that short-term realistic career objective is, but also know that that is one point in time. As you learn, grow as an individual, that may pivot, change, completely do a 180 as you learn more, but having a focus and clear objectives is really important to us as a program. And it shows, again, getting to those motivations and ambitions. It's another way in an essay prompt to reflect that. But this is more in terms of your leadership experience and your career aspirations versus reflecting who you are as an individual within your core values.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, very helpful. And yeah, thanks for elaborating on a couple of these questions here. Let's turn to Laurel at Yale SOM. Same thing, Laurel. You guys have, this one main question with 3 potential paths people could take. So yeah, take us through it and let us know why you guys ask it this way and what you're looking for.
Hi, listening to Andrea, I think we're coming from a similar place in that we want to give people an opportunity to talk about the things that they want to talk about and the areas of themselves that they most want to convey. So I'm going to talk about all 3 of these prompts collectively because for us, they're really part of a whole, which is helping us understand how you approach something that really matters to you. So just for a little bit of history here, the first option here, the one about the commitment, was our sole essay prompt for probably about 6 or 7 years. And we liked this prompt because your time in business school and the path that you take from there represent significant commitments, and it's valuable for us to understand how you've previously approached a commitment of major importance in your life. And so this was a great prompt for us for many years, and we got valuable information from it. But the reality of a business school application is that we only get a small window into who you are as a person. And so we want to make that window as big as possible to allow you to tell your unique story. So we asked ourselves if this is the best prompt to give everyone a platform for talking about what's most important to them, because that's what we really want to understand, what matters to you most and how you've approached it. And a commitment might be the right framework for you, but that's not always going to be the case. So we chose to sort of telescope outward from the sole framework of commitment and open up the possibilities for candidates to describe what matters to them from a number of different perspectives. So from the perspective of commitment or the community or the challenge that's mattered most within your life. And I see these prompts as a set as really reflective of what we value as a community at Yale. The mission of the Yale School of Management is to educate leaders for business and society. And so we want to bring people into our community who care about making an impact. And these tend to be people who are self-reflective, who learn from the experiences that they've had, who see through something to the end, even when it isn't easy. And I think these prompts give 3 slightly different, although potentially overlapping opportunities to show us how you've approached something of real importance in your life. And as I mentioned before at SOM, we're big believers in the best predictors of how you'll behave in the future being how you've behaved in the past and how you've learned and responded to past experiences. And so our application process as a whole really looks not just for your aspirations, but for the actions that you've taken, for evidence-based support of how you'll be as a student and as an alum of the school. So all of these questions are very much grounded in the experiences that you've had to date. In terms of how to approach answering these prompts, so we care not just about the topic that you choose to write about, but really how you've approached this thing that matters deeply to you. So I definitely advise you to, you'll want to share something of why this topic is important to you and why you chose it, but you'll really want to spend the bulk of the essay addressing, what your approach was to the commitment or to the community or to the challenge. And you should be detailed and specific in describing that approach. Definitely use the sort of italicized kind of follow-up questions that come after each prompt. They're there to guide you and give you some sense of will be helpful in explaining over the course of your essay response. I do want to mention as well, you don't have to have whatever commitment, community, or challenge you've chosen. Don't feel like you have to have everything neatly tied up at the end. I'll give you the challenge example specifically. So we intentionally don't phrase this as a challenge you've overcome. Maybe it's something that you're still in the thick of. Maybe it's something where overcoming doesn't really apply. It's just a fact of life that you continue to live with. So we don't expect you to have everything kind of neatly wrapped up in a bow. So don't limit yourself to identifying something where you have this kind of neat story. Again, we're looking for the element of your life that has mattered to you most, no matter which of these lenses you choose to pursue it through. So hopefully that opens it up a bit, not just to kind of success stories, but how you are, maybe in the thick of something. And the last thing that I'll mention is, obviously we've spent this entire, almost 45 minutes at this point talking about the essays, because I know that this can be a really kind of important and challenging part of your MBA application process. But I'll say, at least within the SOM evaluation, I would put into perspective what role this plays. It is, the essay is important. It can add important context to your application as a whole, help shed some light on perhaps other aspects of your applications and the circumstances in which you achieved what you've achieved. But I also don't want to add undue pressure. Your essay is not going to undermine excellent work experience or great academic preparation. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to construct, a perfect essay.
Yeah, that's really important advice. I think part of the reason that happens is because the candidates, they have 100% control over their essays at this point, whereas their work to date or their grades from university are these sort of set things to a large extent. So they end up focusing on this. But you're right in that, you guys have a lot of other components to the application that you're looking carefully at. I did want to ask you a follow-up. So like your peers, you guys have a career statement. And I thought it was interesting, though, that you kind of talked about what have you already done to pursue these interests. And I wondered, so for someone who is accelerating their career, so maybe they've been, I don't know, maybe they're an investment banking analyst and they want to become a partner or some, VP at a bank. And so they're going to business school, they're going to learn more about finance and then get back out into the workforce. And so they'd have a very easy answer to what they've already done. But someone who's maybe, I don't know, a school teacher who's looking to pivot into the business world and maybe work in ed tech or who knows. Do you think it's harder for them, or is it okay to sort of talk to things that are not maybe as directly aligned, or maybe just a total career switcher who's what they've done to date, maybe they were in the military and now they want to do consulting, and you could argue those are really different. Any advice there as to how to tackle that piece?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll start by saying that the career interest prompt is really not meant to lock you into some specific pathway that we're going to hold you to. We know that most people change their minds for one reason or another once they get to business school, or pivot a little bit from where their application starting point would be. So we're not really trying to play career advisor and assess whether your career path is feasible or recommended or whatnot. We're really trying to understand your self-reflection and your research. So if you are a school teacher, what was the process you went through to kind of identify your interest in moving to investment banking? What did that look like? What was sort of that aha for you? Why did that make sense? And why are you now pursuing this really significant investment and making that pivot? And then what research have you done? We don't expect you to have had the services of a career development office at your disposal, but you do have a lot of resources you can tap into to research your aspirations. And have you conducted informational interviews? Have you talked to people who have pursued a similar path? Do you understand what your transferable skills are that you've developed in the career path you've taken so far that's going to make you a viable candidate for that next thing? So again, I think there's no starting and ending point that's too far away in a sense, as long as you've done that research and can kind of present a thoughtful approach. And that's what, again, we're really looking for. Have you gone through that thought process? Because then even if you pivot once you're in school, we're confident you'll be able to do that kind of self-reflection and thought process again.
Okay, excellent. So now what we're going to do is, before our panelists bounce off into individual breakouts, we have something called the lightning round, and I'm going to go backwards through the alphabet. So we'll just stay with Laurel, since she was very patient as we went through the alphabet twice going the other way. So Laurel, just rapid fire. I have 3 questions for you. The first one is, what is your favorite spot on Yale's campus?
I'm going to say Sterling Memorial Library, which I'm going to put a quick link to in the chat if you want to check out, because I'm not going to do it justice, but it's beautiful structure on campus that is, as a student, I found as a very inspiring place to study, because I studied the best with lots of other people around me doing the same thing. So Sterling Memorial Library would be my favorite.
Okay, excellent. And then our next lightning round question is, do you have one piece of non-essay advice for people who are thinking about applying to Yale?
Yeah, I mean, it's so cliche, but I really always come back to just be yourself. It's really confusing to have to be somebody else for every school, and to remember who that self is when you're going into every interaction and kind of part of your application. So just be yourself. None of us are looking for one specific cookie cutter person. And that's just going to free you up to approach the entire application process in a much more relaxed and natural way.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like, I think we've said it a million times on the ClearAdmit website that you don't reinvent yourself for each school. You need to take personal inventory, figure out what are your, what are the great things about you, and then put those things out there. And I think all these schools that have joined us today and all month on these panels have very diverse classes filled with all kinds of individuals. So do not reinvent yourself for every school you're applying to. As Laurel points out, it'd be really hard to remember as you go into each interview, what did you say to this school about your, background and plans? So last question, Laurel, in the lightning round here is, in honor of Michigan Ross's essay question, tell us something unique about yourself.
It's inspired, but I'm sure many others in addition to me have been watching the Olympics. So maybe a somewhat unique fact is I was a competitive gymnast up through high school, and on a scale of 1 to Simone Biles, I'd rate myself about a 2.
Excellent. All right. Super timely as a lightning round for response there. All right, let's go to Andrea. Andrea, what's your favorite spot on Michigan's campus?
So the Ross School of Business is kind of in the heart of Central Campus in Ann Arbor. And I was not a Ross student. I was a master's student next door at Marshall, but I spent a lot of time as a student at the Davidson Winter Garden within Ross. And I would say we were showing the Olympics yesterday there. So, I mean, whether you want to study, socialize, network, it's a beautiful place. And it just happens to be right there within Ross.
Excellent. I love how all of our panelists today are graduates of the institutions for which they work, even though, Andrea, we're bending the rules a little, but you are a University of Michigan graduate. So very cool. All right. What about a piece of non-essay advice?
I think be an active participant in this process. So not just the application, but engage with the programs that you're interested in. We host a number of events, both virtually and in person throughout the recruitment season. Build that rapport, really build that understanding of why you're applying to this program, I think is a really good way to set yourself up for success through the application process.
Yeah, great advice. I think the more time you spend learning about a school and talking to students or alumni, the better off you're going to be in the process. Last one for you. You're going to answer your own essay question. What's something unique about you?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think first, this year is very special for me. 20 years ago, I was in your shoes, applying to MBA programs. And so it's a really reflective year for me. And I'm also a student. So I am now all but dissertation, but I finished my last class a few weeks ago, getting my doctorate of business administration. So again, empathetic lens, I think unique perspective as an admissions director.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, congratulations on finishing the coursework. Good luck with
Thank
the
you.
rest ahead. All right, Paula, let's turn to you. What is your favorite spot on campus?
Well, this is gonna sound a bit ridiculous, but this is my favorite spot. This is not me, but it could be, because so this is actually the terrace, one of the terraces in the North Campus. So IESE is in Barcelona. It's a bit far out, like close to the mountains. And although the full-time students live in the South Campus, this is the North Campus where you have the executive programs, and it's up the hill. So you get a view of the whole Barcelona. As you can see the sea. This side, you can see the Sagrada Familia. So it gives you a good perspective. Apart from the fact that you have to walk 2 blocks to go to North Campus when it's not burning hot. I'm actually very happy to have meetings in North Campus, because then I get to see this view, and I'm just like, it's reassuring, and it feels a little bit my heart of saying how lucky and privileged I am to live in such a beautiful city, which is not my hometown. So it's it's nice to have that feeling that I chose the right place to be.
So I can vouch for the hill. I made a mistake when I was visiting once. I had a meeting at this very space that you have behind you, and I thought, well, I'll just zip up, because on the map it looks quite close. But I didn't look at a topographical map. I just looked at a map, and so yes, but it's not very far. It's just very uphill. But it is a beautiful view when you get up there. So,
Exactly.
all right, one piece of non-essay advice.
Well, it's a little bit building on what Andre was saying. I think that every candidate should do their due diligence when applying to business schools, right? I think that many times candidates feel that all the power is on the business schools' hands, and that's not necessarily true, right? I think that every candidate should be really researching, investigating, talking to current students, alumni, and at the end, really feeling in their guts how they feel about each school, right? It's not only about throwing your cards out there and see what sticks. I think it's really about seeing where you would feel that you belong, and see that you would feel comfortable, and you would like to be part of that community. You would like to be friends with the people that you're talking to, because we talk a lot about networking, but at the end, what you're going to get are friends, no? So I think that doing the due diligence and, taking this as probably the biggest or one of the biggest decisions that you are going to make in your life, it's very important, right? And not just about a numbers game that you should be applying everywhere and see where you're going to get admitted, and that's it, right? I think that the due diligence process is very important.
Yeah, great advice. I think people are so often very focused on the kind of outcome, the career goals, and where they're going after business school, that they don't always take into account that this is 2 years of your life that you're going to spend in a community. And so you should make sure that you match up well with that community. Last but not least, what is something unique about yourself?
Yes, great question. I would spend so much time thinking about that essay, Andrea. I had to answer it in my MBA application. Well, I think this was something that shaped me a lot. When I was 11 years old, I started painting classes, and I did it for 7 years. And what that brought to me was a different view and perspective of the world, of aesthetics, of art, of music. So although, yes, I would listen to pop music with it was a private teacher. So my private teacher and we would listen to like more adult music, maybe. So more like classic Brazilian singers. I'm originally from Brazil, for those that don't know. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself properly, but I'm originally from Brazil. So that has really shaped me. When I was 12, 13, 14, I was going to museums on my own. I was crossing the city on a bus and public transportation to get there. So I think that showed me a different side of the world that many times teenagers that are going through other social dilemmas sometimes don't have the opportunity to.
Okay. Excellent. All right, Trisha, last set of lightning round questions. We'll turn to you. What is your favorite spot on Columbia Business School's campus?
Yeah, so as many of you know, Columbia Business School has brand new buildings, and we have incredible views of the Hudson River. But my favorite spot is actually the link that is underground that connects our two buildings. It is where all the lockers are. And the reason it's my favorite spot is I'm always running into students that I want to catch up with down there, colleagues that we can have a quick conversation. There's something about the community there that is just really always fun I always build in extra time when I'm walking between two buildings because I know I'm going to see somebody that I want to talk to. And so I really love that sense of community. I also really appreciate that we have an underground connection between the buildings when it's a cold New York winter and I don't have to put on a coat to go outside. So, and I saw a question about the main campus and Butler Library that's in the chat. Columbia University's main Morningside Heights campus is a mile south of us. It's 20 blocks away. But all Columbia Business School students can use all libraries of Columbia University with their ID. So at any point, you can visit the other campus, though we find that our campus is so beautiful and so new and shiny and pretty that people just want to stay on the Manhattanville campus and they don't go down to the Morningside campus.
Got it. Okay. What about one quick piece of non-essay advice?
Talk to us. Talk to people who are members of the community. I think Paola said it best when she talked about trusting your gut as well and understanding who are the people who are going to be your friends for the next 2 years. And that requires, engaging with the schools that you're applying to, and whether it's through talking with current students live or on Zoom, whether it's visiting the campus or attending a lot of the webinars if you're not able to come to campus. I think it's really important for you to visualize yourself at the school and to really understand that community that you're going to be joining. And I know it says one, I'm going to give 2 pieces of advice. Enjoy the journey. This is the start of the journey. And no matter what the outcome is, the journey will continue. All of our schools welcome reapplicants, and there is a school for you out there. And so enjoy the process as opposed to focusing just on the end goal.
Okay. One last thing, and then we're going to get into our breakouts. Each of our panelists has been kind enough to, they're going to stick around. We'll set up some Zoom breakouts so that you can ask them your individual questions. So please stay with us. But in honor of Michigan's question, what's something unique about you, Tricia?
I have a liberal arts non-quant background. I graduated with a political science degree and spent almost 7 years in consumer magazine editing. So I started business school not knowing how to use Excel. I recommend that if that is you, learn Excel before you start orientation.
Yeah, we should talk about that sometime because that's how I started business school as well, with no experience using Excel. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask our panelists to step backstage. I want to thank Paula, Andrea, Laurel, and Tricia for your time on the main session today. We're going to send them backstage so that they can get ready for their breakout rooms. But thanks so much, guys, for doing this. So we'll let them head backstage. In the meantime, attendees stay here because we're going to get you set up with the breakouts in a moment. Just wanted to give our panelists like a minute to take a breath and get themselves set up. While we do that, I wanted to remind you of 2 resources that you can use at ClearAdmit. The first, which I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, is ApplyWire. It's just a tool on our website where you can put in your a little bit about your background and your target schools and your career plans, and then members of the community will chime in and weigh in on your candidacy and just give you feedback. So that's a lot of fun, and there's a pretty vibrant community on our site. And this is anonymous too, so it's not like you're putting your name on your profile. You're just kind of giving some basic facts and figures. The other thing I wanted to mention is we also have a set of videos on our website that are free to watch that I recorded with my colleague Alex Brown, who I host a podcast with. And I think there are 25 of these short videos. Each video is less than 10 minutes long. And it's just all about every sort of step in the application process. And these are free videos. You can watch them on the website. So please check those out as well. It's a series that's called the Admissions Academy. And we tried to distill each of the application sort of components into these very short videos to help you get up to speed on the admissions process and on thinking about things like who to choose for your recommenders or how to write essays, all these basic things that you need to know. I think we've given our panelists enough time to get settled into their breakouts. So We're going to get you guys settled. One thing I should mention is if you are using Zoom just via a browser, you can't get into the Zoom breakout. So you need to use Zoom via the app or the application on your desktop or mobile phone. So just a warning there. You'll want to use Zoom that way in order to get in. But in any event, we will now let you get into the breakouts. This should start to appear for you on screen. Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to join us. We've done 4 of these this month. I've had so much fun, and it's been great to see all of you. And we will have another series of events in September, so stay tuned for more details on that. Best of luck to you all as you work on your applications, and have fun asking schools questions now. I know they're waiting to talk with you, so please enjoy. Thanks again.